The bustling spaceport of New Terra hummed with activity as beings from across the galaxy rushed to and fro, a cacophony of languages, and the whir of advanced technology filling the air. It's the chaos. A small figure weaved through the crowd, her pale blue skin and large, luminous eyes marking her as distinctly non-human. Zara, barely reaching the waist of most humans, clutched a datapad to her chest as she navigated the throng of travelers. She was here for one reason: to prove herself in the Galactic Combat League, the most prestigious fighting tournament in known space. As a Nexian, a species known more for their intellectual prowess than physical strength, Zara had faced skepticism and ridicule when she announced her intention to compete. But she was determined to show the galaxy that size and brute force weren't everything. As Zara approached the registration kiosk, she heard snickers and whispers from the other competitors waiting in line. Hulking Croxian, his scaly skin rippling with muscles, leaned down to peer at her. "I think you're in the wrong place, little one," he growled, his voice dripping with condescension. "The petting zoo is on level 3. Laughter erupted from the surrounding aliens, but Zara stood her ground, her large eyes narrowing. "I'm here to register for the Galactic Combat League," she said, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. The laughter grew louder. The Croxian slapped his knee, his booming guffaw drowning out the others. "Oh, that's rich. What are you going to do? Bore your opponents to death with Nexian philosophy?" Zara was about to retort when a new voice cut through the laughter. "Is there a problem here?" The crowd parted, revealing a human man of average height but athletic build. His brown hair was cropped short, and his eyes, a striking green, surveyed the scene with a mix of curiosity and concern. "No problem," the Croxian said, still chuckling. "Just explaining to this little Nexian that she's wandered into the wrong place." The human's eyes flickered to Zara, then back to the Croxian. "And what makes you think she's in the wrong place?" "Look at her," the Croxian exclaimed, gesturing wildly. "She wouldn't last 5 seconds in the arena." The human crossed his arms, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I wouldn't be so sure about that. In fact, I'd be willing to bet she'll surprise you." Zara looked up at the human, surprised by his defense. He winked at her before turning back to the Croxian. "Tell you what," the human continued, "if you're so convinced she doesn't belong here, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? I'll sponsor her entry into the league." A hush fell over the crowd. Sponsorship was a serious matter in the Galactic Combat League. It meant vouching for a competitor's abilities and backing them financially throughout the tournament. The Croxian's eyes narrowed. "You're joking." "Do I look like I'm joking?" the human replied, his voice level, but with an undercurrent of steel. For a moment, the two stared each other down. Then the Croxian threw back his head and laughed. "Your funeral, human. When she gets squashed in the first round, don't come crying to me." As the crowd dispersed, still buzzing with excitement over the confrontation, the human turned to Zara. "I'm Jack," he said, extending his hand. "Jack Cooper." Zara took his hand, marveling at how it dwarfed her own. "Zara," she replied. "But why did you do that? You don't know anything about me or my abilities." Jack shrugged. "Let's just say I have a good feeling about you. Plus, I've always had a soft spot for underdogs." He grinned. "So, partner, shall we go register?" As they approached the kiosk together, Zara felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. Gratitude for Jack's intervention, nervousness about the challenges ahead, but most of all, determination. She would prove to everyone, the Croxian, the other competitors, and maybe even Jack, that she belonged in this arena. The registration process was quick but thorough. Biometric scans, background checks, and a battery of physical tests that left Zara breathless but exhilarated. Through it all, Jack remained by her side, offering encouragement and advice. As they exited the registration area, Zara turned to Jack. I still don't understand. Why sponsor me? What's in it for you? Jack's expression turned thoughtful. You know, when I first came to this spaceport years ago, I was a lot like you. Small, at least compared to most of the aliens here, and completely out of my depth. But I had something to prove, just like you do now. He paused, his eyes scanning the bustling crowd around them. I learned that in this galaxy, it's not always about who's the biggest or the strongest. It's about adaptability, intelligence, and the willingness to never give up. I see those qualities in you, Zara. Zara felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. Thank you, Jack. I won't let you down. I know you won't, he replied with a smile. Now, let's go prepare. The first round of the tournament starts tomorrow, and we've got a lot of work to do if we're going to shock this galaxy. As they made their way through the spaceport, Zara couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. She had come here alone, expecting to face the challenges of the Galactic Combat League by herself. Instead, she had found an unexpected ally in Jack. Together, they would face whatever the tournament threw at them, and Zara was determined to prove that sometimes the most unlikely partnerships could yield the most extraordinary results. The next morning, as Zara and Jack entered the massive arena for the opening ceremony, the air was electric with anticipation. Competitors from hundreds of worlds filled the staging area, a dizzying array of shapes, sizes, and colors. Zara felt small among them, but Jack's steady presence beside her bolstered her courage. As they took their place in the lineup, she heard the whispers and snickers from nearby competitors. But this time, instead of shrinking away, she stood tall, or as tall as her small frame would allow. The master of ceremonies, a tall, willowy being with shimmering, translucent skin, floated to the center of the arena. Its voice, amplified by some unseen technology, echoed through the vast space. Welcome, beings of the galaxy, to the 500th Galactic Combat League. Today, we celebrate not just physical prowess, but the diversity and spirit of our vast cosmos. May the best team emerge victorious. As the crowd roared its approval, Zara felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked up to see Jack grinning down at her. Ready to show them what we're made of, partner? He asked. Zara nodded, her determination solidifying into an unbreakable resolve. Ready, she replied, her voice strong and clear. Together, they stepped forward into the arena, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The unlikely duo, a small Nexian and her human partner, were about to take the Galactic Combat League by storm. First trials. The Galactic Combat League arena was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure that could adapt to simulate various environments from across the galaxy. As Zara and Jack prepared for their first match, the arena transformed into a dense, misty jungle, holographic trees sprouting from the ground and a thick fog rolling in. Remember, Jack said as they waited for the signal to enter, we've trained for this. Trust your instincts and don't let their size intimidate you. Zara nodded, her large eyes scanning the jungle before them. Her hearts, all three of them, were racing, but she felt a strange calm settling over her. This was what she had come for. The signal blared, and they entered the arena. Their opponents, a pair of Vulcan warriors, were already advancing. The Vulcans were known for their brute strength and thick, armored skin. They towered over Zara and Jack, their forearms rippling with muscles. Look, one of the Vulcans sneered, its voice like gravel. They sent us a snack. Zara felt Jack tense beside her, but she placed a hand on his arm. Let them underestimate us, she whispered. The battle commenced, and immediately, the Vulcans charged. Their strategy was clear, overwhelm with sheer force, but Zara and Jack had other plans. As the first Vulcan approached, Zara darted between its legs, her small size and agility allowing her to evade its grasp easily. Confused, the Vulcan turned, leaving itself open to Jack's attack. With a series of quick, precise strikes, Jack targeted the weak points in the Vulcan's armor that Zara had identified during their research. The second Vulcan, seeing its partner in trouble, rushed to help, but Zara was ready. Using a device she had engineered, a small, disc-like object, she created a localized gravitational field. The Vulcan, unprepared for the sudden change, stumbled and fell. "Now, Jack," Zara called out. Jack, understanding immediately, leaped onto the fallen Vulcan's back. Using a technique they had practiced tirelessly, he applied pressure to specific nerve points, rendering the massive alien unconscious. The crowd, which had been laughing at the mismatched pairs at the start of the battle, was now watching in stunned silence. Zara and Jack worked in perfect synchronization, using their environment to their advantage. Zara's ability to quickly analyze and adapt to their surroundings, combined with Jack's combat skills and their joint strategy, proved to be a formidable combination. In a matter of minutes, both Vulcans were incapacitated, and the match was over. The arena fell silent for a moment before erupting into cheers. As they exited the arena, Jack grinned at Zara. "Not bad for a snack, huh?" Zara allowed herself a small smile. "We did well, but this is just the beginning. They'll be ready for us next time." Their victory sent shockwaves through the tournament. Overnight, Zara and Jack went from being the laughingstock of the league to the team everyone was talking about. Reporters clamored for interviews, and other competitors watched them with wary eyes. But with their newfound fame came new challenges. As they prepared for their next match, Zara noticed Jack wincing as he stretched. "You're injured," she stated, her tone concerned. Jack tried to shrug it off. "It's nothing, just a bruise from the Vulcan's last swing." Zara shook her head. "It's not nothing. Let me see." Reluctantly, Jack lifted his shirt, revealing a nasty bruise spreading across his ribs. Zara's eyes widened. "Why didn't you say something?" she asked, already reaching for their medical kit. "Didn't want to worry you," Jack admitted. "We've got another match tomorrow, and I didn't want to throw off our momentum." As Zara applied a healing gel to the bruise, she felt a mix of frustration and admiration for her partner. "Jack, we're a team. You don't have to hide these things from me. We face our challenges together, remember?" Jack nodded, looking sheepish. "You're right. I'm sorry. It's just, I'm not used to having someone have my back like this." Zara finished treating the bruise and looked up at Jack. "Well, get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere." The next day, they faced their second match. This time, their opponents were a trio of Medusan floaters, gaseous beings that could change their shape at will. The arena had been transformed into a zero-gravity environment, filled with floating debris and obstacles. As they entered the arena, Zara could sense Jack's apprehension. Fighting in zero was challenging enough, but with his injury, it would be even more difficult. "Remember our strategy," Zara whispered as they pushed off from the entry platform. "Let me take the lead on this one." Jack nodded, trusting his partner completely. The Medusans attacked in a swirling vortex of color and gas, trying to disorient them. But Zara had come prepared. She activated a device on her wrist, creating a localized electromagnetic field that disrupted the Medusans' ability to maintain their shapes. As the Medusans struggled to reform, Jack moved in. Despite his injury, his movements were precise and effective. Using the floating debris as cover and propulsion, he maneuvered through the chaos, tagging each Medusan with a specially designed compound that solidified their gaseous forms. Within minutes, all three Medusans were immobilized, floating helplessly in the zero environment. The crowd went wild, chanting "Zara, Jack," as the unlikely duo claimed their second victory. As they exited the arena, flush with victory but exhausted, they were met by a swarm of reporters and fellow competitors. Among them was the Croxian who had mocked Zara at the registration. "Impressive," the Croxian grudgingly admitted. "But don't get cocky. The real challenges are yet to come." Zara and Jack exchanged a glance, both thinking the same thing. They had proven themselves capable, but the Croxian was right. This was just the beginning. The path to the championship would only get harder from here. As they made their way back to their quarters, discussing strategies for their upcoming matches, Zara felt a surge of gratitude for her partner. Together, they had already accomplished more than anyone thought possible, and she had a feeling their greatest challenges and greatest triumphs were still ahead. That night, as Zara tinkered with her gadgets and Jack reviewed footage of potential future opponents, they both felt a sense of anticipation. They were no longer the underdogs, the joke of the tournament. They were contenders, and they were just getting started. The Galactic Combat League had never seen a team quite like Zara and Jack, and they were about to show the galaxy what true partnership could achieve. Rising through the ranks, as the Galactic Combat League progressed, Zara and Jack found themselves facing increasingly difficult challenges. Their unconventional tactics and remarkable teamwork had carried them through the early rounds, but now they were up against the elite competitors of the galaxy. Their next match pitted them against the cybernetically enhanced Quandrax twins from the Andromeda Galaxy. The arena had been transformed into a labyrinth of shifting metal corridors, with gravity plates that could change direction at any moment. As they prepared to enter, Jack noticed Zara's hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her equipment. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling down to meet her eyes. "What's going on in that big brain of yours?" Zara hesitated, then spoke. "I've been analyzing our opponents' past matches. Their neural link allows them to communicate and coordinate instantaneously. How can we compete with that level of synchronization?" Jack smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We may not have a fancy neural link, but we've got something just as powerful. Trust, we've come this far together, and we'll face this challenge the same way." Zara nodded, her resolve strengthening. As they entered the arena, the Quandrax twins were already in motion, their movements a blur of perfect coordination. The battle was intense from the start. The twins moved as one, their attacks coming from multiple directions simultaneously. Zara and Jack found themselves constantly on the defensive, barely able to keep up with the onslaught. "We need to break their rhythm," Zara called out as they narrowly dodged another attack. Jack nodded. "An idea forming. Remember that maneuver we practiced? The one you said was too risky." Zara's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. The timing would have to be perfect." "Do you trust me?" Jack asked, his eyes locked on hers. Without hesitation, Zara nodded. "Always." In a move that left the audience gasping, Jack grabbed Zara and threw her high into the air, just as the gravity in the arena shifted. Zara soared over the twins, activating a device that emitted a high-frequency pulse, momentarily disrupting the twins' neural link. In that split second of confusion, Jack struck. His attacks, precisely targeted at weak points Zara had identified in the twins' cybernetic enhancements, left them reeling. Zara landed behind the twins, using her small size to her advantage as she darted between them, further disorienting them. Working in perfect harmony, Zara and Jack pressed their advantage, and within minutes, the seemingly invincible Quandrax twins were defeated. The crowd erupted in cheers, and as Zara and Jack embraced in victory, they realized they had just defeated one of the tournament favorites. They were no longer underdogs. They were serious contenders for the championship. However, their rising success brought new challenges. As they progressed through the tournament, Zara and Jack found themselves the target of resentment and sabotage attempts from other competitors. One evening, as they returned to their quarters after a particularly grueling match, they found their room ransacked, Zara's equipment destroyed. No, Zara muttered, sifting through the wreckage of her devices. "Without these, we don't stand a chance in the next round." Jack surveyed the damage, his jaw clenched in anger. "We'll find who did this, Zara. They won't get away with it." But Zara was already moving, her mind racing. "There's no time for that. Our next match is in less than 48 hours. We need to focus on rebuilding. Jack watched in amazement as Zara began to work, her small hands moving with incredible speed and precision. "Tell me what you need," he said. "Whatever it is, I'll get it for you." For the next 2 days, they worked tirelessly. Jack scored the spaceport for the components Zara needed, calling in favors and making deals. Zara barely slept, pouring all her energy into recreating and improving her devices. As the hours ticked down to their next match, tension mounted. They were up against a hive mind collective, a group of insectoid aliens that operated as a single entity. Without Zara's tech, their chances were slim. With just minutes to spare, Zara made the final adjustments to her rebuilt equipment. She looked up at Jack, exhaustion evident in her eyes, but a fierce determination burning within them. "It's ready. It's not perfect, but it'll have to do." Jack grinned, helping her to her feet. "It'll be more than enough. You're brilliant, Zara. Now let's go show these saboteurs what happens when they try to keep us down." The match against the hive mind was their toughest yet. The arena had been transformed into a dense, sticky web-like structure, perfect for the insectoid collective but treacherous for Zara and Jack. The hive mind attacked in perfect unison, thousands of small creatures forming larger shapes and structures. But Zara and Jack were ready. Zara's hastily rebuilt devices emitted signals that confused and disrupted the hive mind's coordination, while Jack's combat skills kept them at bay. It was a grueling battle, pushing both Zara and Jack to their limits. But in the end, their trust in each other and their ability to adapt overcame even the perfect unity of the hive mind. As they stood victorious once again, the crowd chanting their names, Jack turned to Zara. "We did it. Against all odds, we did it." Zara nodded, a rare smile spreading across her face. "We're more than just partners now, Jack. We're a family." Their victory catapulted them into the semifinals. Only 2 more matches stood between them and the championship. But as they celebrated their hard-fought win, both Zara and Jack knew that their greatest challenge was yet to come. The reigning champions, a duo that had held the title for 5 consecutive years, awaited them in the finals. And if the sabotage attempt was any indication, their opponents would stop at nothing to keep their crown. As they left the arena, exhausted but triumphant, Zara and Jack shared a look of determination. They had come too far to back down now. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The galaxy watched in anticipation as the unlikely duo from Earth and Nexus prepared to take on the giants of the Galactic Combat League. The stage was set for a final that would be remembered for generations to come. The ultimate test. The atmosphere in the Galactic Combat League arena was electric. Billions of beings across the galaxy were tuned in to watch the final match of the tournament. In one corner stood the reigning champions, the Zor Maxim twins, hulking, 4-armed beings from a high-gravity world, undefeated for 5 consecutive years. In the other corner, the unlikely duo that had captured the galaxy's imagination, Zara, the diminutive Nexian, and Jack, her human partner. As they prepared for the match, Zara and Jack could feel the weight of expectation on their shoulders. They had come further than anyone had thought possible, but the true test lay ahead. "You know," Jack said, adjusting his gear, "when I first sponsored you, I never imagined we'd end up here." Zara looked up at him, her large eyes filled with a mix of determination and affection. "Are you having second thoughts?" Jack grinned. "Not a chance. There's no one I'd rather face this with than you." The arena began to transform around them. The final match was designed to test competitors to their absolute limits. The environment shifted constantly, cycling through different terrains and atmospheric conditions. One moment they were in a scorching desert, the next in a freezing tundra. As they entered the arena, the Zor Maxim twins were already in position, their 4 arms flexing menacingly. The twins had a fearsome reputation. They were known for not just defeating their opponents, but utterly demolishing them. "Remember," Zara whispered to Jack, They rely heavily on their physical strength. We need to outsmart them. Jack nodded, his eyes never leaving their opponents. Speed and strategy. Got it. The signal to begin blared, and instantly, the Zor Maxim twins were in motion. Their coordinated attack was like nothing Zara and Jack had faced before. Each twin covered the other's weaknesses perfectly, leaving no opening for counterattack. Zara and Jack found themselves constantly on the defensive, narrowly avoiding crushing blows and grappling attempts. The environment shifts added another layer of challenge. Just as they would start to adapt to one terrain, it would change, forcing them to alter their strategy on the fly. As the battle raged on, Jack noticed something. "Zara," he called out, dodging a massive fist. "They're not adapting to the environment changes as quickly as we are." Zara's mind raced, analyzing this new information. "You're right, they're so focused on overwhelming us. They're not paying attention to their surroundings. We can use that." With renewed energy, Zara and Jack began to implement a new strategy. Instead of trying to directly counter the twins' attacks, they used the changing environment to their advantage. When the arena shifted to a low-gravity setting, Zara used her small size to leap over the twins, confusing their coordinated attacks. In high-gravity situations, Jack's trained reflexes allowed him to move more efficiently than the bulky Zor Maxims. But the Zor Maxim twins weren't champions for nothing. Realizing their strategy was being countered, they changed tactics. One twin focused entirely on Zara, trying to separate her from Jack, while the other engaged Jack in close combat. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed like their partnership might be broken. Zara found herself cornered, the massive form of one Zor Maxim looming over her. Jack was pinned down by the other twin, unable to reach his partner. "Zara," Jack called out, struggling against his opponent's grip. In that moment, Zara remembered something Jack had told her during their training. Sometimes, the best defense is a good offense. With determination burning in her eyes, Zara activated her latest invention, a personal force field that she had been saving for this exact situation. The Zor Maxim's fist came down, only to be repelled by the shimmering field around Zara. The twin, caught off guard, stumbled backward. Seizing the opportunity, Zara darted between its legs, using her agility to confuse and disorient the massive alien. Simultaneously, Jack executed a complex maneuver they had practiced countless times. Using the Zor Maxim's own strength against it, he redirected its momentum, sending it crashing into its twin. The crowd gasped as the seemingly invincible champion stumbled. Zara and Jack pressed their advantage, working in perfect synchronization. Zara's tech disrupted the twins' coordination, while Jack's combat skills kept them off balance. The battle raged on, with neither side willing to give an inch. The arena continued its relentless transformations, from underwater depths to windswept mountain peaks. Through it all, Zara and Jack adapted, their trust in each other unwavering. As the match entered its final minutes, both teams were exhausted. The Zor Maxim twins, for the first time in years, showed signs of fatigue and frustration. Their once perfect coordination was fraying at the edges. Zara and Jack exchanged a look. This was their moment. "Ready for the final?" Jack asked, a glint in his eye. Zara nodded, understanding immediately. They had practiced this move countless times, but had never dared to use it in actual combat. It was risky, but if it worked. As the arena shifted once more, this time to a rocky, volcanic landscape, they made their move. Jack sprinted towards the twins, drawing their attention. At the last moment, he dropped and slid between them. The twins, focused on Jack, didn't notice Zara activating a device on her wrist. Suddenly, localized gravity fields sprang up around each twin, throwing off their balance. As they struggled to regain their footing, Jack was already in motion. With a series of precise strikes, he targeted pressure points that Zara had identified in their research. The Zor Maxim twins, their movement slowed by the gravity fields and their coordination disrupted, couldn't defend against the onslaught. In a final, breathtaking move, Zara leaped onto Jack's shoulders. As he spun, she used the momentum to launch herself at the disoriented twins. With pinpoint accuracy, she planted small, adhesive discs on each twin, discs that delivered a harmless but incapacitating electrical charge. The Zor Maxim twins, the undefeated champions of the Galactic Combat League, fell to the ground, immobilized. For a moment, the arena was silent. Then, as the reality of what had just happened sank in, the crowd erupted in deafening cheers. Zara and Jack had done the impossible. They had defeated the champions. As the final buzzer sounded, Zara and Jack stood in the center of the arena, breathing heavily but standing tall. They had faced their ultimate test and emerged victorious. The Galactic Combat League had new champions, a small Nexian inventor and her human partner, who had proven that the strength of teamwork and trust could overcome any obstacle. As they were declared the winners, Jack lifted Zara onto his shoulders, both of them beaming with joy and disbelief. They had started this journey as unlikely partners, doubted and mocked by all. Now, they stood at the pinnacle of the galaxy's most prestigious combat tournament. But even as they celebrated their victory, both Zara and Jack knew that this was just the beginning. Their partnership, forged in the crucible of the Galactic Combat League, was destined for even greater adventures. The galaxy watched in awe, wondering what this extraordinary duo would accomplish next. Triumph of the underdogs. The days following Zara and Jack's victory in the Galactic Combat League were a whirlwind of celebrations, interviews, and accolades. Their unprecedented win had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, inspiring beings from all walks of life. As they stood on the grand stage of the GCL closing ceremony, the weight of their achievement finally sinking in, Zara turned to Jack. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "We really did it." Jack grinned, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We sure did, partner. And I have a feeling this is just the beginning." The master of ceremonies, the same willowy being who had opened the tournament, floated towards them, carrying the championship trophy. A magnificent crystalline structure that seemed to capture the light of 1,000 stars. Zara of Nexus, Jack of Earth. The being's voice resonated through the arena. "You have shown the galaxy the true meaning of partnership, determination, and ingenuity. It is my honor to present you with the Galactic Combat League Championship Trophy." As they jointly lifted the trophy, the arena erupted in cheers. Beings from countless worlds celebrated not just their victory, but what it represented: the triumph of underdogs, the power of diversity, and the strength found in unlikely alliances. In the days that followed, Zara and Jack found themselves becoming symbols of hope and inspiration across the galaxy. They received invitations to speak at universities, consult with military strategists, and even mediate interplanetary disputes. One afternoon, as they prepared for a meeting with the Galactic Council, Zara noticed Jack looking pensive. "Credit for your thoughts?" she asked, using an Earth idiom she had picked up from him. Zara nodded, her large eyes filled with understanding. "It's been quite a journey, but you know what hasn't changed? The trust we have in each other." Their conversation was interrupted by a ping from their communication device. It was a message from an unexpected source, the Croxian who had mocked Zara at the beginning of the tournament. I owe you both an apology," the message read. "Your victory has taught me and many others a valuable lesson about judging others based on appearances. You've inspired me to start a mentorship program for young, aspiring athletes from often overlooked species. I hope you'll consider being guest speakers sometime." Jack and Zara exchanged a look of surprise and satisfaction. Their victory was having far-reaching effects they had never anticipated. A small Vulcan child, barely reaching Zara's height, stepped forward. "When I grow up, I want to be just like you," she said, her eyes shining. "You showed us that anyone can be a hero if they believe in themselves and work hard." Touched by the child's words, Zara knelt down to meet her eye level. "Remember," she said gently, "the greatest strength lies not in our physical abilities, but in our minds and hearts, and in the bonds we form with others." Jack nodded, adding, "And never let anyone tell you what you can or can't do because of your size or species. The galaxy is full of possibilities for those brave enough to reach for them." As they continued on their way, Jack turned to Zara. "You know, when I sponsored you, I thought I was just entering a fighting tournament. But we've become so much more than that." Zara smiled, her expression thoughtful. "We've become a symbol of what's possible when different species work together. Reminder that the galaxy is stronger when we celebrate our diversity rather than fear it." They paused at the entrance to the Galactic Council chambers. Beyond those doors, leaders from across the galaxy awaited them, eager to hear their insights on teamwork, strategy, and overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds. "Ready for our next adventure, partner?" Jack asked, extending his hand. Zara took it without hesitation, her small hand fitting perfectly in his larger one. "Always," she replied. As they stepped into the chamber together, they knew that while they had reached the pinnacle of the Galactic Combat League, their true journey was just beginning. They had started as unlikely partners, became champions, and were now poised to be catalysts for change across the galaxy. The tale of Zara and Jack, the small Nexian and her human partner, would be told for generations to come. It would inspire countless beings to look beyond appearances, to forge unlikely alliances, and to believe in the power of partnership and perseverance. In a vast and often divided galaxy, they had become a beacon of unity, testament to the extraordinary things that could be achieved when different beings came together, combining their unique strengths to overcome any challenge. As the doors of the Galactic Council chamber closed behind them, Zara and Jack stepped forward into their new role, ready to face whatever the future might hold, together.